Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, the Trojans get it done in Las Vegas. They upset the number 13 ranked LSU Tigers. What a game we saw on Sunday. How you doing, Cody?
I'm good. I think all of my energy was used up yesterday and earlier today. I'm tired today. We are recording this. It is Monday night at, what time is it right now? 9:15 p.m. So we just got back. Hopefully you guys got to watch. We just did Trojans Live a couple hours ago with Lincoln Riley and Kyron Hudson, which was unbelievable to hear from both of them after the win. You could see, too, Coach Riley's eyes were a little bloodshot. Kyron, you could tell,
we all were tired.
He had the recovery bands on his legs, so everyone's just kind of feeling it a little bit. But it's unbelievable. What a 24 hours for USC fans and the players and the coaching staff. It was so much fun to watch. You know, me and Sua and the rest of the group, you were part of it too, but Sua and I were in ESPN LA. We didn't get to go to the game, so we were doing the Trojan Tailgate show from the studios. And then as soon as that finished up, I went as quick as I could getting home. And then watch the rest of the game from the couch. But I've got to ask you, how amazing was that atmosphere? It looked unbelievable from watching at home. I can't imagine. And I could hear you in the pregame show trying to talk to us, and you could just hear the sound. Yeah. Like your mic was cutting out because of how loud it was. And that was just pregame.
It was insane, and you're right. Like, I remember one time you guys threw it to me on the field, and that was right when LSU, the majority of the players were coming out for warm-ups, and it was just like this rumble, and I was trying to be like, please, I'm trying to make my segment, but no, it was insane, and I tweeted about it. It felt like a New Year's Six Bowl. Like, it felt like, it did not feel like
didn't it?
It did not feel like the first game of the season. It felt like we had been playing all year for this one game. Everyone's here to see it all. And like, it comes down to this. And in reality, it was first game of the season for both these teams. So it was just insane.
It's crazy you said that too. Cause, and I mean, we didn't say that on the show earlier, but it really felt like that. It felt like it was, or maybe you mentioned that, but it really felt like it was the end of the season.
Right.
We go out there and hi buddy, my dog's here. We have a guest today, by the way. Here, come here, bud. Because you're going to see, I'm going to get it out of the way now. Come here. Get up here. Come here, get up. Get up. This is my dog, Coda, my boy.
So cute.
What do you think about the Trojans win? Okay. Got your treat? You're done? Okay. So just if you see a tail walking back and forth, now everybody knows who it is. But, yeah, it was crazy because – and Miller had a great quote. I'll get to that in a second. But it was unbelievable. It felt like with the confetti and after the game was won and guys doing the confetti angels on the field and – Lincoln Riley and just the emotion from that game. It was everything you want in a college football atmosphere. And guess what? It's week one. So buckle up. It's going to be a long year. But if that's anything to show how this season's going to be and how this team can come together and play in that type of environment, you know, we're in for a real treat this year. And the quote I was going to say real quick that Miller said was, he said, we have to remember our goal this season wasn't just to beat LSU, right? So enjoy that win, but let it sink in a little bit, enjoy it, take it all in. But we've got to get ready to go next week against Utah State.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's definitely like you don't want to overplay it, you know? But it is so impressive that the team on the whole, had so much poise for how difficult an environment that it was to play in and like what they faced. You know, it's not like they had any context to – you know what, we've been down before. We've had a bad third quarter, and we know with this roster we can do X, Y, and Z. This was all just, let's see what we can do. And so that to me was such a great sign. But I'm getting ahead of ourselves. This is supposed to be the intro.
I know. We're already. I can't help it. It's just. I'm sure all Trojan fans are the same way. It was. I wanted to go tell everybody about the game last night when it ended, and it's been an unbelievable 24 hours for Trojan fans.
For sure. So obviously we have to break it all down. We have a lot of questions to get to. We will definitely make sure we answer all of those or as many as we can. We have a lot to talk about, Cody. Nothing really much to say in the intro except for a couple of reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you ever want to get your voice heard, be sure to look out for a tweet or a question box on Twitter or Instagram. Our socials are VictoryPodUSC. And if you didn't know, the LSU USC game was presented by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF partner of the USC Trojans. Alrighty, Cody, like I said, we kind of had an intro there, but I kind of want to start with the defensive side of the ball. So we haven't said it yet, but USC won 27-20. Also, can I just toot my horn a little bit? We had game prediction.
Here we go. I have no hill to stand on anymore, so go ahead. Thank you. Let's hear it. Get it out of the way early.
Yeah, I know. all Wednesday or whenever we recorded. It was Friday. It's been a long 3 days.
Yeah, Friday.
You were like, it's because you went after me, blah, blah, blah. I went first. I had a score prediction. I was the closest. I almost got it like 1 point off. I said 23-21, I believe. And it almost was 23-20 if it weren't for Woody Marks sealing the deal.
You jinxed yourself.
I know. I texted you.
You texted me right before Woody Marks scored, right after the Kyron Hudson unbelievable catch. You texted me and you said, "Do you remember what my score prediction was?" And I just, my heart sank. I said, "Oh no, she did it again." And I just knew I was going to hear about it the next day. And then sure enough, Woody Marks goes ahead and scores the go-ahead touchdown with 8 seconds left. And then I asked you, "Did you pick 27-20?" And you said, "No, 23-21." But I would have had it. And I think I even said in the text, like, "Way to go, you jinxed yourself." But it was fine. I still got to say, it should. Yeah, should that have been? Was that a center the play? Protect the football and then kick a field goal and get out of there? Absolutely. But Woody Marks broke it and somehow got through there, which was unbelievable. But yeah, that was, I got to get, hey, I complained all week. I made you go first. I did everything I could and I still got my butt whooped. So I can't say anything.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
it's only week one. It's only week one.
We didn't have any idea though. Like, and that's what comes down to this game is like, there was only so much you could do. I talked to Miller Moss after the game and he was like, I was basically playing video Tetris, like film Tetris. Like we're watching Mississippi State, but then we're also watching like LSU's personnel. And like we previewed it. It was a lot of unknowns coming into this game, which makes it even more impressive that USC was able to do what they were able to do. I want to start first though, Cody, with USC's defense, if I haven't said that already, just because I was just so impressed by D'Anton Lynn's debut as defensive coordinator for USC. First off, your overall thoughts. What did you think of their performance on Sunday?
Yeah, it's okay. So this is like the 24-hour rule, right? The game's over. We won. Did it look phenomenal? Yes. Are there areas to improve on week one? Sure. So we'll get into both of those. But rapid reaction from me when the game ended or while the game was happening, the first thing I noticed, and I think Trojan fans will agree with me, is how physical his defense looked, how well they flew to the football. They rallied to the football. When you watch the UCLA tape from a year ago, that was evident. I mean, you could not ignore the fact of there were 4, 5, 6, 7 of those ugly powder blue jerseys, but they were rallying to the football consistently. And it was something that I was hoping that he would teach here at USC and something that would translate well. And it did just that. I mean, Kamari Ramsey coming down from the safety position, there were a couple hits. I had to rewind. And I'm like, who was that? And Jalen Smith had a couple big-time plays, too, as well at the corner spot. Mason Cobb looked comfortable again. Eric Gentry had so much excitement, and he played with so much enthusiasm. It felt like a completely new defense, and it was. And it's just it's such a great feeling to know that, you go out and you make that hire. You take that risk. You go get a defensive coordinator that only has 1 year of experience at the college level, a 34-year-old, a younger coach, not proven like some of these older veteran coaches, and you go take that chance and it pays off in such a huge way. I mean, if you would have told me yesterday that we would have held LSU to 20 points, the number one offense from a year ago, and yes, I understand that Jaden Daniels was not there. He wasn't playing. They lost Malik Neighbors. They lost Brian Thomas Jr., but Kyron Lacey, their tight end, Mason Taylor, I mean, they had some very good players on that offense. Garrett Nussmeier looked very good too. But if you would have told me we would have held them to 20 points and controlled the pace of the game, besides maybe a little bit in the third quarter, I would take that 7 days out of the week.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's funny because even the simple things were kind of shocking me a little bit, to be honest. Like making the tackle on first contact, like limiting the yards after contact. Like I was really impressed by not only that, but like the rallying to the ball. Like there was just an energy and a precision to what they were doing. And I feel like that was just lacking for not even in the Lincoln Riley era, but going farther than that. I just felt like it was just a breath of fresh air to see. I mean, even like, I know we're not going chronological here, but fourth quarter, okay, USC's defense has to get a stop here. And I think, and I talked about this on Trojans Live, I think a lot of USC fans were like, okay, like a little, like you know.
Hey, guilty. I did exactly that.
And USC's defense got a 3 and out. They did their part on Sunday, and I think that's something that USC fans were hoping best case scenario would come out of this change. And I think all signs point to obviously this was the right change, and things are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, when you watch a team for the first time, right? You have all these expectations and everything leading up from the offseason, but you really don't know, right? We can say, oh, Jalen Smith has looked phenomenal in practice. Keely Arnold has looked phenomenal. Kamari Ramsey's the smartest player I've ever seen, like Miller said. But at the end of the day, it's just that. It's practice. When the lights are bright, when you're in an environment that's that hostile and you know, you're playing a top 15 SEC opponent, you have no idea what you're going to see. And it's the first game of the year, right? And I love what Lincoln said about D'Anton Lynn and his and the defense. He said something along the lines of, you know, outside of maybe that big play, I think it was a pass play in the second half where there was a coverage bust.
It was towards the end of the game.
Yeah, but he said and he said on Trojans Live, outside of that, there were not a lot of mental mistakes. And that's huge. That tells me that D'Anton Lynn has done a phenomenal job this offseason and he's talked about this before and he's preached it since he's been here, that I'm going to go as slow as I need to make sure everyone's on the same page so that when game day comes around, that's the easy part, right? That's the part to where we've already seen it a bunch at practice. We can go out there and perform and play fast. And that's something that we saw from start to finish from that defense. And it's just, like you said, I hate to live in the past and talk about the past, but it's something we're not used to here at USC, and it's something that's lacked the last couple of years. And we saw a defense that I think can go out and win us a lot of football games this year. Now you pair that up with a Lincoln Riley offense, the sky's the limit. I'm excited, and obviously it's week one. You know, this is the overreaction time of year, but
of course,
I'm excited about it. It got me fired up as a former player to see a defense flying around like that.
For sure. And as I mentioned at the top, we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to bring them into our conversation to kind of make sure we're efficient here. Bob said, is Lynn a magician, or did LSU abandon the run?
No, I'm glad this question got brought up because this was going to be my next point. We looked phenomenal stopping the run, right? Last year at UCLA, D'Anton Lynn had the number 2 ranked run defense in the entire country. And on Sunday, I almost said Saturday. My days are off. On Sunday, which was yesterday, so, you know, we're 24 hours. I know, it's unbelievable. But
it's a whirlwind.
It really is. But we did such a great job. This is another thing that Lincoln said, and you can see it when you rewatch the film or when you're just watching it live. He said a reason that we didn't miss a lot of tackles and we did so good in the run game is because we had great gap integrity. And what that means is it's so difficult when you get pushed out of the hole, right? If you have A gap responsibility, right? So there's center, A gaps on outside, B gap, C gap working our way out, right? When you give up your gap integrity, when you lose the A gap control, it makes it so much more difficult for a linebacker who's coming in to fill that responsibility to tackle in space. When you have guys like Nate Clifton and Kobe Pepe and Bear Alexander and Gavin Meyer doing a great job of not getting bullied around or pushed around, that's why you see less missed tackles, because there's not enough room for the running back to make a guy miss. It's so much more difficult in a 5x5 area to make a tackle than it is in a 1x1, right? And we did such a great job of that. And Lincoln said, you know, that looked great on the field and also looked great in the film room afterwards. So that was huge for me. And I got to give full credit. And did LSU think they were going to come in and, you know, Will Campbell said it's going to be a fist fight and we're going to run the football at will and we're going to do what we want to do and we're going to be physical. And Bear Alexander challenged that a little bit on Twitter. Did we come in there and make a point that we're going to be physical and we have a good front seven? Absolutely. That was a check for me. That was something that I was keeping an eye on. I thought we were phenomenal against the run. We gave up a couple explosive plays in the run game in the third quarter, but after that, made quick adjustments and got right back to being a great run-stopping defense.
Yeah, overall, one of the things we previewed was this LSU offensive line. It was a red dot position for the first time ever in Victory Pod history, if you will. How did you see this defense, the front seven, fare against what we think is a very experienced and good offensive line?
Yeah, that's probably, I mean, you can argue Michigan. You could argue possibly Penn State. Outside of that, probably the best offensive line we're going to see this year. I mean, it's one of, if not the best offensive lines in the country. You have 2 tackles that are first-round picks. You have 2 guards that are probably the best guard duo in the entire country. So I will say that you know, there's positives and negatives with it, right? The positive for me is we look great. We were dominant. All that 1,400 pounds that we put on as a team collectively in the offseason showed up yesterday on Sunday. But for me, the biggest issue outside of the run game was being able to get pressure on the quarterback, right? So we got to talk about the positives and the negatives. USC did not have a sack the entire night, but it really felt like we didn't even have a lot of pressures besides some of those free rush blitzers that we had. But when we just rushed 4 or 5 straight up and didn't bring a linebacker pressure, we struggled to get home, right? And that's something for me that we have to get fixed going forward. Garrett Nussmeier is probably one of the better quarterbacks we'll face this year as well. I don't think, you know, he's going to, but he hasn't got the credit he deserves yet, and he's going to earn that as he continues to go, you know, throughout this year. But we made it too easy on him at times with letting him sit back there and be comfortable and I don't want to say pick us apart because we did a good job of keeping everything in front, but it just looked like he was playing 7-on-7 at times. And when you're a team that likes to take pride in being funky or give confusing looks and get home to the quarterback, and that's not the entire game, right? Obviously, we had a huge blitz by Mason Cobb on that first 4th down stop, free rusher. We did a great job, I think, the second to last drive, that 3-and-out we had, a great pressure look. I think it was a cover 0 look by D'Anton Lynn. I'm just talking about when we just rushed 4 straight up and not being able to get home on the edge or putting pressure on him, getting somebody in his lap from the interior. So that's something that's got to improve for me. But overall, we did a great job of showing everything we need to do and being physical and taking that step from a year ago to say, hey, we're going to stop the run, we're going to be dominant, and we're not going to get pushed around by the best offensive line in college football.
We also had a question from Jonathan who said, what happened to Lacey in the second half? Did our defense make adjustments?
Okay, we did not, I guess, our whole preview pod, by the way, was setting up, if elephant in the room, we're obviously podcasting from home. But we did not preview pod, I guess, if you will, or have our notes put together. That was literally the next point I was going to bring up. That's 2 in a row, so that's funny, but that was another huge thing for me, right? And this was one of my keys to the game, was we have to be able, when you play the first game of the year, and this is something I talked to Lincoln Riley about, when you play the first game of the year, you're watching Missouri with Coach Baker from a year ago, you're watching Nussmeier in a bowl game, you're kind of picking and choosing, watching the couple plays that Lacey got in from a year ago. So you don't really know what to expect with the personnel, and there's so many different faces. So this is a huge game for in-game adjustments, but also halftime adjustments. Lacey had 7 catches for 94 yards and a touchdown in the first half. Do you know how many catches he had in the second half? 0.
Wow.
He did not touch the football in the second half, right? And that's something that we have yet to see here at USC in a while, is being able to take a playmaker completely out of a game plan, right? And that's something that D'Anton Lynn takes pride in, and he did a phenomenal job of that. Another adjustment thing that I just talked about, the third quarter, right? Like I just said, we saw some big-time run plays. Whatever Lynn did, we went over to the sideline, got it fixed, and we didn't see LSU run the football at will the rest of the night, right? It looked like the first and second quarter and the fourth quarter. Besides that little period in the third, they had a couple big plays, but it was just so impressive to watch in person. And I guess it's we're spoiled now because we haven't seen it in a while, but it was just so cool to watch a guy in the first half. And that was one of my points. I said, man, Lacey's going to go for 200 and probably another touchdown if we don't get this figured out. And sure enough, we came out in the second half and completely took him out of the game plan. I loved the way that Jacoby Covington played on the outside. I think Jalen Smith was one of the unsung heroes of the night, made big play after big play in big-time moments. And the only thing I'll say coverage-wise outside of that was a little concerning, and again, there's good with bad. I didn't like that I love we played aggressive and played man-to-man. We just played a little bit too far off on some of those slot plays for my liking, right? The touchdown on the quick out route where our two guys ran into each other. I love the cover 0 look. I love bringing pressure. I love forcing Nussmeier to get the ball out quick if we can't get home with a 4 or 5 man rush, but play tighter in 3rd and 4. And obviously that's how you get it fixed and you learn from your mistakes and make those adjustments. But I mean, overall from our secondary, front 7, everything, it gives you a lot of optimism as a USC fan going forward about this defense. And I'm just beyond pumped for D'Anton Lynn and the job he did yesterday.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 things that I want to go to next. The soft coverage we saw, especially at the start of the game. Obviously, I'm not a football guru. I just was wondering why that was the case. It just felt like we weren't, like Deion Bailey loves to say, like sticky enough, if you will. Yeah. Why do you think Lynn would do that?
I think 2 parts to it. Well, one of it was we started the game off and we were playing a too high look. I think it was cover 4 was what we started the game off in. And yeah, they took that easy completion right away. But we went to man fairly early. But I think the problem was we were giving them too much respect. I don't necessarily think it was coverage-wise because we played some press man on the outside, but Lacey was getting some of those comeback plays or those 15-yard, outbreaking routes to the sideline, and it felt like Jacoby or a couple guys were way off. I just think we were so worried about getting beat deep and giving up the big plays. And you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? I'm fine with giving up some of those underneath routes. Now, on 3rd down, you hate to see it, right? Especially on 3rd and 4. Get up there, play a little bit more press. I'm okay if they beat you over the top. That's that high-risk, high-reward type defense that Lynn likes to play. But early on, I'm with you. It was a little frustrating us playing so far off, but I think it was more so us trying to just fill out the game plan a little bit, right? What is LSU going to do early on? What are we going to do early on? How are we going to make these adjustments after the first couple of drives? And Lynn did just that, right? We gave up some uncontested catches and some easy catches, more than I would have liked to see, but we didn't give up big-time plays, right? LSU a year ago was 5th in the entire country in explosive plays. They only had 3 plays over 20 yards the entire night. We were forcing them to go the length of the field, and that's something we're not used to seeing here at USC. Last year, we were bottom third, I think, in the country of giving up those explosive run plays. I mean, how many times can you count a year ago? I mean, think of Cal, think of Utah game, think of some of those games where we're giving up 30, 40, 50-yard run plays or pass plays, and now it feels like, all right, let's be bend, don't break down in the red zone. Lynn did such a good job of forcing the LSU's offense to go the length of the field. And when you force them to have more plays, that gives you more opportunities to make a play on the football, and it forces them to have more opportunities to make mistakes. So I'd like to see some of those third and short situations play a little bit tighter in coverage, but I'm okay with keeping everything in front and making sure we come up and wrap up and tackle.
We got a question from Lobo who said, I saw us in a 4-3 defense with Gentry, Easton Mascarenas Arnold, and Mason Cobb. What are your thoughts on that? Those 3 were key.
Yeah, they were, and that was probably, since I've been covering USC again, the best linebacker play we've seen in, like I said, 3 years. It was phenomenal to watch those 3 play together, and I got pumped when I saw that. I think the third quarter, there was a time when it was all 3 of them out there, right? And you're so used in today's era of college football of seeing 2 linebackers and then a nickel player out there. But when you can have a 4-3 and have all of them out there, and LSU did go double tight a couple times, so you need to have some of those base looks, and we're going to see a lot of 3 linebacker looks, or we're going to have a lot of 3 linebacker looks ready to go for the Big Ten when we see these double tight and 3 tight end looks. Hold on real quick before I get too far ahead on this point. I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but did you see what we did to start the game, by the way?
No.
Did you see how we came out? We came out in a 2 tight end look. How we joked all offseason. We joked all offseason about, is Lincoln Riley going to show double tight at any point because we're going to the Big Ten, tight end U, all that, laughing about it. And then sure enough, the first 2 plays of the game, we have Kate Eldridge and Lake McCree out there at the same time.
I have tight end thoughts, but I'm saving it for our offensive
we'll get to
section.
offense. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just didn't want to forget to bring that up. That blew my mind.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but back to my original point. Sorry. But yeah, we're going to have games where we're going to need all 3 of them to play at the same time, right? And we've talked a lot about this offseason. How's that rotation going to look with Cobb and Gentry, or Cobb and Mascarenas Arnold, or Gentry and Mascarenas Arnold? I feel great now putting all 3 of them out there, or any combination of those 3. If you only have 2 on the field at a time, I feel great. And I think they all 3 played phenomenal. Again, obviously Mascarenas Arnold's first year here at USC, so we can only judge him off of that. But for Cobb and Gentry, it just really felt like they played with a new confidence. And I don't know if it's because they have a veteran like Mascarenas Arnold next to them, or they just feel rejuvenated in this Lynn defensive scheme, and they know how important they can be. I mean, it really felt like we saw Cobb from the player that I scouted at Oklahoma State, who had 96 tackles and was flying around the field with his hair on fire, shooting the A gap, shooting the B gap, making plays in the backfield. And then we saw the Gentry we saw from 2022 a little bit, like glimpses of that cover 2 seam ball that they tried to fit through the middle of the field to Mason Taylor. You see Gentry go up and make a play on the football and tip it using his 6'6" frame, and then you see him on that third and short run. He shoots inside the tight end or the tackle and makes a play in the backfield and gets up, and he's excited. So it was – I get the chills, man, talking about it. It's so exciting when you see a group or a position group that we were so hard on a year ago, which we were, right? We were critical of them, and we made sure – and Sua was the first one to say it on Trojan Tailgate. As a linebacker, we've got to play better. And to see that fixed or going in the right direction already in the first game just makes you feel great about the future of this defense.
1,000%. And you nailed it with the word rejuvenation. I felt like we were seeing Gentry from first Utah matchup 2022. Like he just 100%. Had a passion and an energy for being out there that I think was missing for a little bit. And then like you said, Mason Cobb as well. But also your other point about having Easton out there. When I interviewed Mason Cobb after the game, he was like, it was so great to be alongside Easton. I think for some reason, and obviously we're not in the room, so we don't fully know, and we're not playing with them, but I think Easton is a real help to Mason. And so it's really interesting to just see how that combination of guys has plus this new scheme has really just rejuvenated their energy. And so, like you said, we were critical of that group, but it's amazing to see that step forward.
And I'll say this, the best way to answer that of why guys can play better when you have good players around you is because that trust level goes up, right? I remember there were times, and Lincoln said this about Miller Moss, when I asked him on the Trojans Live last week, he told Miller just to be himself and trust the guys around you. It's the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. When you try to not only do your job, but the guy's job around you, because maybe you don't feel confident or comfortable with the players around you, or maybe you feel like, hey, I've got to make up for him as well. you start playing a little bit slower. You start getting out of like we said, gap integrity. You start losing your responsibility to try to be Superman and make up for others or someone else's mistakes. But when you have players around you that you fully trust and you feel, and it really felt like that. It felt like Kamari and Keely Arnold and the guys up front, the front four. Anthony Lucas looked confident. Jameel Muhammad looked great. I mean, just guys flying around, and the linebacking core just looked so confident. And it felt like it was the true definition of do your job, right? I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do because I know the 10 guys around me are going to do their job, and I'm going to fill the A gap and have gap integrity because I know Mason Cobb's going to fill the B gap and be right behind me. Or I'm going to take on a double team up front with Gavin Meyer because I know Mascarenas Arnold is behind me, and I trust that he's going to make the play for me, right? I might not get the credit, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Or how we saw Jacoby Covington or Jalen Smith. I'm going to force the play back inside. I may not make the tackle, but Kamari Ramsey's coming down to lay the wood and hit somebody very hard, which he did a couple times yesterday. But it's so much fun to watch when you see a confident defense out there flying around and just showing so many different looks.
SoCal Flo said, did you feel like Lynn didn't empty his bag of tricks on Sunday?
I'll say this. No, he didn't. I'll tell you that much right now because we're going to see different things throughout the year that we've probably never seen before from a defensive coach at USC because there's just a game plan wise, right? And that's something, same thing on offense, right? Like we saw an unbelievable play by Lincoln Riley that I've never seen before. You know how many times we ran that play action slide route to Zachariah Branch in the flat, right? From last year, I think San Jose State, I'd probably have to pull up the film, but how many times we do an RPO with Caleb, run the slide route with Zachariah Branch, kick it out to him and have Lake McCree and, Deuce Robinson on the outside blocking, right? So we ran it a couple times yesterday. And then on that huge drive, I think the second drive before our last one, or maybe around fourth quarter, we ran that fake slide play. Lake McCree sold that he was going to block that linebacker, then slip to the seam route, right? So that was unbelievable. Something we've never seen from Lincoln, and you feel like you've seen it all, and then boom, he has something in his bag of tricks. Same thing with Lynn. When you have a coordinator on either side of the football that is that good, there's different looks or different things that they're constantly – I mean, that's the type of coaches that you want to play for, the coaches that mind are always working, right? He gets home on his one off day and, talking to his kids and his wife and, you got to block football out, but you can tell they're still ticking because they're thinking of, hey, what if we ran this look against – Penn State next week? What if we ran this look against Michigan? So I think he has a ton of stuff still in his bag of tricks, if you will, and we're going to see a lot of it throughout the year. But no, you're going to game plan accordingly, and I think he showed what he needed to win the football game on Sunday, and I think he's going to do that week in and week out and show you different looks you haven't seen before, so you can't game plan for us and make us too predictable.
And I think that's the fun part about his scheme in particular, right? You can have a lot of variability because that's the whole point of it, really, to a certain degree. The thing that makes me feel most comfortable about D'Anton Lynn here at USC, I took a lot of pride when I played quarterback of game planning for opponents and knowing you better than you knew yourself. I would hate to game plan against D'Anton Lynn. I would absolutely hate, and I've played defenses that are kind of in that coaching tree or that, the Baltimore Ravens tree we've talked about before. It is a nightmare. It is a identification nightmare trying to figure out who the Mike is, who the Sam, who the Will, which player's coming, which player's not. I mean, it got Nussmeier so many times last night to where you see Lynn walk up all 7 or 8 guys up front, and Nussmeier's making cover 0 checks to the outside, and then we drop out and drop 8. And then the next time you think, oh, it's drop 8, and then, okay, they're playing soft coverage, and then you see all out cover 0 a millisecond before the ball snapped. Like, it's just unpredictable. It's so funky, the word we've used before. It's so hard to figure out what's going on that it makes it an absolute nightmare as an opposing quarterback and offensive coordinator to game plan for. And kind of going back to the question I just answered, there's still so much that is yet to be seen that he can do with this defense and all the versatility he has. I can't wait to see it. Now, this might be a dumb question, but with that being said, do you think that there's even more advantage going forward in the season when you have 6-ish days to prepare for Lynn rather than a whole off season? Or does having tape of this Lynn USC defense with its personnel give you a leg up in that sense?
Yeah, that's where football becomes a chess match, right? And that's where the bag of tricks question, again, I know I keep talking about it, but that's where did he show everything he has becomes very important because you go into a game understanding looks and different fronts and personnel so that you can game plan accordingly, right? For example, like if I was going in and I knew they had a Sam strong safety blitz, which is a Sam linebacker and a strong safety blitz, right? If I knew they were bringing those two, it would be an under or a 4-3 under look. The Mike would be slightly cheated over to the Sam side. Like there's little keys that you can figure out, right? And that's never going to change. You're going to be able to pick up on that stuff. And at times you're going to have to be able to just guess right or wrong, right? And we're going to have to know that, hey, guys, there's going to be good quarterbacks, right? Peyton Manning was impossible to trick or to confuse, right? Even when Ed Reed was on the field, or Tom Brady, a guy that I played with in New England, impossible to confuse him, right? He always knew what you were going to do, but that's where that becomes a chess match in football, where you've got to kind of find those little advantages where I'm going to show an under front with the mic pushed over, and you're thinking I'm bringing Sam strong safety, but this time maybe I'll just bring a corner from that side and drop the Sam out, or bring a Sam corner look and let the safety play over the top, right? We saw a corner cat pressure on the first series of the game from D'Anton Lynn yesterday, right? And that's something that LSU picked up. Fine. There's going to be times when the offense wins and they're going to say, okay, gotcha. We just got to keep that to a minimum. And it's kind of that high risk, high reward, right? There was one of those plays we talked about earlier where there was, I think that 39-yard run was because it was a third down situation, or maybe a little bit earlier in the game, where we're showing 7 or 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, where it can either be a 4-yard tackle for loss, or if he gets through that front, first line of defense, he's going to be able to break it and make a big play. So I'll live and die by D'Anton Lynn's defense this entire year. I have no doubt about it. But there's little games within the game where you can show maybe similar looks but bring a different player, or play different covers behind it. But it's football is just so much fun. It's a cat and mouse, chess match where it's coordinator versus coordinator every single game, and you're always trying to find a way to get that advantage. And it's so the margin for error is so small. Yeah. That it's one of the most fascinating games in the world, and that's why I love that we get to watch it, and that's what we talk about, and that's a sport that I chose to play.
This is where football and film nerd Cody Kessler really shines, and I just love it.
It makes
your answer right now.
It makes me want to have I wish I had a video board right now, and I could show exactly what I'm talking about, or a white, which we've done before. So stay tuned. Maybe by week. Little preview, maybe by week we can get a little film breakdown of USC D'Anton Lynn's defense. But I'm trying to, it may sound like I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying so hard to explain it the best I can to give you a visual, because talking X's and O's without, a video in front of you or a laser pointer on the film room is tough to do. But hopefully you're following along a little bit. I'm not making it too complicated.
We got a question from A. Jones, who said, do you think the defense on the field on Sunday should be the starters going forward? Now, we alluded to it already, but we're probably going to see a lot of rotation on Saturday. What day does USC play on anymore? Yeah. I don't know.
What's today? I don't even know what today is anymore.
Yes, agreed. But we're going to see a lot of rotation. But what did you think of the starters on defense on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, no big surprise for me. I mean, I think it was one guy that did surprise me, and we saw it on the depth chart, but it was Greedy Vance Jr., right? That was something. I think it surprised me because we were expecting to see Jalen Smith at nickel and maybe John Humphrey or DeCarlos Nicholson starting at corner alongside Jacoby Covington. So when you move Jalen Smith out to that corner position, playing on the outside, which is not easy to do, by the way, making that position change and still being efficient and playing well with it. So Greedy Vance Jr. surprised me a little bit, but I thought he played well. I expect to see him again on Saturday. I think we rotated so many guys with a 1 or 2 deep up front that I'm not really too concerned with playing time up there or what that rotation is going to look like going forward. And it makes you feel comfortable when you have multiple guys that can play, right? When you have Nate Clifton, who I thought played very well, Gavin Meyer, who was a standout in camp. You have Bear Alexander as well, and Kobe Pepe looked good. So I felt comfortable there. And then you got some guys on the outside as well. I thought Braylon Shelby had some big time plays. Remember, that was my breakout player for this year on defense, taking that next step from the first to second year. So I think you have enough depth to be able to maybe change up a starting role if you need to, based on the opponent week to week, right? If you may see a different look against, Penn State or Michigan, who the starting 11 will be, as opposed to playing Oregon or Washington, right? A Jed Fish type offense at Washington will look different than, the offense you're going to see at Penn State. So that's the only thing I think that'll change. But right now, that first and second unit that we were rotating on defense, whoever's out there or whatever combination you have, I feel fully comfortable with, and I know the coaching staff does too.
Sorry, somewhat off topic, but given that it's week 1, I still am trying to get used to it. My brain is still trying to get used to, like, Cal's in the ACC. Jed Fish is now at Washington. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things where I'm just like, this is weird. I'm used to the Pac-12.
I almost said Kalen DeBoer too, and I tied it together and was like, nope, it's Jed Fish now, and he's not at Arizona. That's everyone's rotating now. It's like musical chairs, but it's again going back. We're off topic here. This is off-season potting, but this is it's like the transfer portal for players, right? You complain that players are here for a year and leave, but head coaches do the same thing a lot, right? And they go take that next job. So, yeah, you've got to be. It's today's era of college football, and you've got to be light on your feet and prepare for whoever that coach is and whatever scheme you're going to see from week to week. So, yeah, it's going to be. I'm so excited for this season, though. If you can't tell, It's now 10:09 p.m. and I feel like it's the middle of the day, and I just drank some coffee and I'm ready to roll. I'm excited.
Pumped. Alrighty, Cody. Any other thoughts on the defense before we switch over to USC's offense?
No, I'm good. I that's, in my opinion, I've said it before, that's why you go hire a guy like D'Anton Lynn and Matt Ince, and you keep a guy like Sean Nua, and you bring in Doug Belk and Henne, and it's just that's what you want to see. So in my opinion, did USC's defense pass that first test under D'Anton Lynn against a very good LSU team that was number one offense a year ago? Big old check mark for me. So that's great to see, and it's encouraging for the rest of the year.
For sure. Alrighty, before we go into the offense, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. Alrighty, talking about the offense, I think we had to start with the Big Ten offensive player of the week, quarterback Miller Moss, making
was he?
his. Yes, it was named earlier today.
Oh, let's go! I didn't know that. Let's go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off on your lead right there into it, but
no, I love excited
that
Cody.
Was news
it's all
to me.
Good.
Oh, that makes that's awesome. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, as a quarterback, Cody, and we've talked about how intense the atmosphere was and what Miller and this offense had to prepare for, given the fact that this defense was going to blitz a lot and blitz from anywhere and everywhere. What does it take to have a performance like Miller had on Sunday?
The first thing that stands out to me is it takes a lot of poise. It takes a lot of confidence, and it takes a lot of that. There's only other way to say it is that it factor, right? Like you're either born with it or you're not. A guy that can go out in that atmosphere and that environment with people screaming, yelling. I know it wasn't a away game, but obviously there was a lot of LSU fans, and especially when we were on offense, it was very loud. But for you to go out there and almost look completely unfazed by it in your first full year as a starter, it is unbelievable to see. And I mean, it's just so cool. And I think that him being able to do that, I think goes back to all the trial and tribulations that he's had since 2021 when he's got here at USC, right? All the times that he maybe didn't doubt himself, but doubted his future here as a Trojan and didn't know what that was going to look like. You know, when you go through those type of situations, and I can relate to that, right? I was back up my first year, and then the second year I was third string, and you just feel like, what am I doing? But when you have those dark moments or those moments of questions, you really have to dig within and know that, it's me, myself, and I've got to be able to put in that work to get to where I want to be. So then when those tough times happen, and, the adversity I had was the coaching changes and all those crazy things happened when I was here, you don't blink an eye and you keep rolling, right? And Miller did that and then some. I think he was phenomenal. And people will praise the 75% completion rate. Amazing. 378 yards. Amazing, right? Just calm, cool, collected the entire night. Amazing. The biggest thing for me that told me that Miller Moss is that guy, he's that dude for this team, was that 2-minute drive. That was, and I know you couldn't see it, and I talked about it a little bit on Trojans Live, when they were zooming in on his face or showing his face in between plays or on replays, even when there was pressure on him from LSU's defense, or even when it was those kind of make or break moments, stone cold. He wasn't, his eyes weren't big. He wasn't looking around. He was just calm, cool, collected. Like it's me and you talking Monday night doing a victory podcast. Like it seemed like nothing was rattling him. And it makes you feel so good, especially as a former quarterback, to know, okay, because you can tell when you watch a guy play, you can tell when they're shaking up a little bit. You can tell when they're flustered, they're not playing comfortable, they're getting out of their comfort zone, they're trying to do too much. He did none of that the entire night, right? He played within himself. He trusted the guys around him. He trusted his offensive line and had a phenomenal performance on a huge stage, the only game on TV that night. And it was just so exciting to see. And it's a great starting point. I know obviously the bowl game, but it's a great starting point for this season for him to build off of.
Yeah, 9.6 million viewers for the game on Sunday, which is insane. I think it peaked at 11 million. So all eyes were on the Trojans Sunday night. You mentioned the 2-minute drill, and we have multiple questions about that. Rama said, how hard is it to run a 2-minute drill like Miller Moss ran tonight? And Jonathan said, as a QB, how does the 2-minute drill work? Who calls the plays?
So how hard it is to run a 2-minute drill is based off preparation, right? And I really truly believe that when you see, and that's kind of the next point I'll make about how calm Miller was. was because you can tell he did it so many times in practice, right? He did it against D'Anton Lynn. He did it against guys that are out there, the Jalen Smiths, the Kamari Ramseys, the Keely Arnolds, the iron sharpens iron type players. You could tell he did it so many times in practice, and he had full faith in Lincoln Riley that game days are supposed to be easy. Now, is it actually easy, in front of 9.6 million viewers and an entire Allegiant Stadium packed to the roof? No, not true. But can it feel like that when your preparation overtakes the nervousness you may feel or the anxiety you have? Absolutely. And that's where you could tell in Miller's preparation that he's ready for those big-time moments because he's put himself the best he can at practice in those situations before. And then when it comes to the play calling, it's on the coach, right? So Lincoln, and it's new this year. And I wanted to ask Lincoln that tonight. We just didn't have enough time. And Jordan kind of brought it up a little bit, but their 2-minute drills are so much easier now because it's not all signaling. He can just tell Miller. And when you go 2-minute, like when I was in Jacksonville with Nathaniel Hackett, who's the offensive coordinator for the Jets right now with Aaron Rodgers, and this is him specifically, everyone does it differently, but when you have a 2-minute play call sheet or a 2-minute list, everything's simplified, right? So the play would be gun double right, 2-jet pot, right? Which means both guys outside are running in routes. The guys on the inside are running squirrel routes or pivot routes breaking out. But when we would get in 2-minute, we'd call that 44. Right, so it would be 44, 44. Everyone knew that was gun double right, 2-jet pot. Or we would have gun double right, 2-jet Z drive, right? Tighten the Z down, run Z drive. That's a full play call in a regular situation on down and distances. But then you get to 2-minute, we would just do the drive in a car. Drive, 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 drive. Everyone knew that, the play was drive, but in reality, the full call or the full play call was gun double right, 2-jet Z drive. So there's ways to do that. It's kind of taking it a step further from the question they asked, but that's how the 2-minute drills work, right? Everything's simplified. Everything's one word, right? We'd call seam, 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 and that would be gun double right, 2-jet, 4 verse, right? Or 4 seams, whatever you want to call it, all go. But we would just call it seam, 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 right? So there's so many ways to do it. But now that they have the headset, you don't have to signal as much, but I guarantee you Lincoln's going, hey, drive, drive, drive. 44, 44, whatever, their verbiage is.
Sure.
And then they can roll and go with it. And so when you practice it enough and you're efficient, it may sound confusing from the outside looking in, but when you rep it over and over and over and over at practice where it becomes monotonous, then you get to the point to where I can do this in my sleep. And that's what it looked like Miller was doing. It really looked like he was out there having a Sunday afternoon stroll and picking apart an LSU defense to go down there and win a football game.
I think he said as much, not that part, but he said
not that.
No, he didn't say Sunday stroll, but he said to Holly Rowe, like, we practiced that 2-minute drill nonstop. So he was like, it was all in our preparation. So it's a credit to what you were saying, Cody.
It's the old quote of, and it might sound cliche or cheesy, but it's the old quotes where I don't practice to get it right. I practice until I can't get it wrong, right? And that's it sounds so, like I said, cliche, but it's so true to where it's, here we go, 2-minute drill again. 2-minute drill again. I'm trying to get it, because you normally do that at the end of practice. Here we go. We got a 2-minute period over and over, and we just did it yesterday, but that's why you do it, because you don't know how many situations you're going to be in to where that's going to win the football game, and you're going to need to look back and lean on those practices that you had to where I ran this 2-minute drill 20 times, over and over and over. I can go out there and perform and make it easy on Saturdays and Sundays.
For sure. Now, you mentioned helmet comms. Antonio said, what's up with Miller's helmet comms? Those 2 timeouts had me stressing. I did think it was interesting. Obviously, I alluded to how loud it was, but you could see Miller do I want to hear what we've seen in the NFL. We now saw
been there.
And
it's the worst.
I thought it was interesting, though. Nussmeier had pads blocking his ear holes and Miller didn't. So I wonder if that's something that they will adjust to going forward.
I am a big advocate for that. So I played in the NFL and started in multiple games. I've been a part of away games to where you're getting the helmet calls, and it is so loud that you can't. And those things they turn those up too. Like those little orange speakers in your helmet are loud. Like it sounds like it's a little muffled at times. It sounds like a legit, like a trucker radio to where it's like, hey Miller, can you hear me? Like it's a weird thing to have while you're playing a football game. But yeah, I've been in games where I've had to. Hey, and you do this is the worst signal as a quarterback with the in-helmet comms is covering your ear and then you don't get it and doing this.
Oh,
you see Stafford does it with McVay all the time to where it's loud and he's just again cover your again. You know what? I got it. I'm just going to call a play real quick.
That sounds terrifying.
So I've been there. It's frustrating. So I think that actually absolutely played a factor on those timeout plays. One of them, it looked like though Miller was frustrated when Lincoln called the timeout. It looked like on the TV copy, Miller was like, I got it. Like, you're good. We can handle it. There's enough time. But in those, situations where you've got to make those big time plays, I'm okay taking the timeout. Obviously, I'd love to have them, But we do have the new 2-minute timeout. Was that what it's called? The 2 minutes
It's not a warning, Cody.
timeout.
It's not a warning.
The 2-minute timeout warning before the 2 minutes left in the half, before the half, whatever they call it now. But I don't know why we just call it the 2-minute warning. That's a whole nother topic.
I know.
But that did save us a little bit to have that. And I think actually that happened for LSU, but that saved us some time in the long run to be able to get that last drive in. So I think that's going to change the whole dynamic. It's almost like having 4 timeouts now per half. So that's a big factor. But yeah, would we have loved to have all 3 going into that situation? But that's the give or take, right? You're gonna live and die by some of that. You're gonna learn from those loud environments, and I guarantee you're gonna see a lot of this in Michigan in a couple of weeks. So
yeah.
You got to get used to it now. But there's they'll perfect it. I have full faith in Lincoln and Miller getting used to it in live game situations as the season goes on.
Now, one of your keys to the game, Cody, was have a balanced attack on offense. How do you think USC fared in that regard? I know that running was kind of an issue at times for USC. And also, if anyone's watching and wondering how I suddenly got over-the-ear headphones, my AirPods died. So that's the change that we're seeing right now.
I was going to say, were you just going to skip over that real quick?
No. I was going to address it. I just had to, transition us a little bit.
We had to cut there for everyone who doesn't know. We cut behind the scenes, and then Keely had to go get some headphones, and now she's DJ Keely. So I got mine on too, though. So, but yeah,
DJs
go back.
in the booth.
Yeah, there you go. So going back, I'm not with technology though. I am this at home stuff. Bear with us if I'm struggling a little bit. Luckily, you're the mastermind behind all of this, but the camera overheated for me, and then I
let's
didn't have things plugged
well.
in right. Yeah,
Don't
luckily my wife
Cody.
helped out with all of it. Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, back to your point. I think the offensive line as a whole, I think they played well. Obviously good, not great. I thought Jonah Monheim did a phenomenal job of kind of weathering that storm in his first game at center. Right, there was no quarterback center exchange issues, right? We didn't have a ball fly over Miller's head and shotgun. We didn't have one go between his legs or roll on the ground. So that's huge. And that happens a lot, right? When you have a first-time quarterback and center playing together, especially in that type of environment, you're bound to see some quarterback center exchange issues, and we had none of those in the game. So that was phenomenal. A couple false start penalties. Overall, USC only had 6 penalties on the night, so played a very disciplined football game. But yeah, I loved how we played in pass protection. We could have done better, but there's only so much you can ask for going against a Blake Baker type of defense, right? He is going to blitz you the entire night. He's going to bring so many different looks similar to what D'Anton Lynn does, and it's tough. There's going to be a couple times he wins, sure, and one of them was a sack fumble. Luckily, we got back on the football, and at the end of the day, LSU only had 2 sacks on the night, so I'll take that. Miller did a great job with his pocket presence and moving around the pocket, mixing up the cadence at times, and really forced LSU's front 7 to be on their heels. So pass protection wise, I give it a pass. I think we did a good job. Now in the run game, that's where, and you mentioned that a second ago, a little frustrated with that. I've always said and been a big fan of having a balanced attack on offense, especially with the first year starting quarterback. Now, did Miller throw 75% completion percentage for 380 yards? Absolutely. Is that going to happen every single game? Would I love to see that? Absolutely. But, is that realistic? Probably not. We're going to have to be able to run the football, and my favorite part about all of that is although we weren't getting a lot of surge up front, and what I mean by that is we weren't moving LSU's defensive players and having these big holes for Woody Marks or Quentin Joyner, but we didn't abandon the run, right? And that was important. I think that paid off huge for Lincoln Riley because it could have been easy for him, especially the first drive of the game, right? We come out and hit Zachariah Branch on the first play. Then the next play, hit Lake McCree, right? And then we're rolling a little bit, have a first down after 2 plays. Then we go 3 straight runs, and we have a zone, RPO read or a zone triple option type read where Perkins comes off the edge, made a great play on Miller pulling the football, but we went 3 straight plays running the football and didn't pick up a first down, right? Then we have the punt. We lose a little bit of momentum. So that happened a couple times throughout the night where I felt like, yes, we want to be balanced, but the pass game is working right now, so roll with it. But overall, the fact that Lincoln didn't abandon the run was so important because was the attack perfectly balanced? No. But Woody Marks had that huge run on the play right before to Jacoby Lane on the touchdown where Miller dropped it in the bucket perfectly on that free play when LSU jumped off sides. Explosive run right before that play. And then obviously the last play of the game, LSU wasn't expecting it. We put the ball on the ground and Woody Marks splits and takes it to the house. And Lincoln even said in a post-game interview when he called that play, he told the guys this could split and Woody could score here. And sure enough, he did that. So overall, the offensive line, some growing pains. There's going to be some room for improvement, and obviously that's kind of every position week one. But happy with pass protection. Obviously we can get a little bit better, but we need to be better going forward, especially in the Big Ten and the run game. And obviously Coach Henson's the guy to get that job done and get everything fixed up front.
Well, speaking of the Big Ten, we got a question from Jake, and he's skipping ahead a little bit, so you can choose to answer this if you want to or not, Cody. But he said, do you think our offensive line will hold up against the Michigan defensive line we saw this weekend?
Yeah, luckily for us, we're in the media, so we can look ahead a couple games. We're not on the team to where we're focused on Utah State this week. But yeah, I mean, I got to watch a little bit more Michigan tape. I watched their offense a little bit. They had a 2-quarterback system. Their offensive line's always going to be good. Michigan's defensive line's always going to be good. I think
formerly coached by Sean Nua.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Sean Nua, another guy that I'm so happy that he stayed with this defensive staff, and his defensive ends played well yesterday. But yeah, I mean, Jake, it's tough to tell after one game, right? And for LSU, that was a new look defensive line for them. There was a lot of question marks up front. We talked about outside of Jacoby and Gilroy, who was their defensive tackle. There wasn't a lot of experience with their front, but they look good. And was it a factor of us struggling in the run game and we made them look better than what they are? Or are they going to be dominant this year? I guess time will tell. But I'm not going to say that I'm worried yet. I'm going to evaluate the film this week against Utah State, and then when we get into that bye week, I'll do a lot of Michigan prep. So I'll watch their defensive line, have a better answer for you then. But I do know to get to where we want to get to this year, and we're saying playoffs already. Keely can do her. There you go. Right on cue.
You know me too well.
But if we want to have a team that can contend in a Big Ten championship and ultimately go to the playoffs, we're going to have to, especially in some away games and those games that are late in November and towards the end of the year, we're going to have to be able to lean on our run game and run the football. So that's going to be a challenge for this offensive line, but time will tell. It's going to be a tough schedule going through, the Big Ten this year, but we have the coaching staff and the players to get it done, and they have a lot of tape to go off of from this first game.
Joe said, night and day with that defense. Wow. And shout out to Miller Moss for balling all night. How do you think we can get the run game going in the future? Before you get into it, Cody, I just want to give a shout out to Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner. I felt like they gave a lot of second effort attempts throughout the night. And so I just thought hats off to them for never saying die, if you will, on Sunday.
Yeah. There was a play. I'm glad you brought that up in my notes. Like I said, I'm a football junkie. I literally kept notes. I sent them to Keely on every single play, on every series. I feel like the kid, and I told my wife this when we were watching the game. I felt like the kid, or like when you're in school, and they roll the TV out or the monitor, they put the TV on, and oh, it's movie day, and then they give you the test or the quiz sheet, and you're like, now I got to take. I'm that guy. I'm watching the game, but I'm taking notes and the whole entire time, so I can't really indulge in watching football. But I had a note that I think was so big. It was one of the drives I think that finished with 3 or maybe even 7 when Quentin Joyner was wrapped up in the backfield and it felt like the play was over, and he saved us 3 or 4 yards. And you know what? It's crazy because you may think, oh, well, it's 3-4 yards and he only gained 1. There is a huge difference between 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 3. There's a huge difference between 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 7. So you may think, oh, it's, a couple yards don't matter from the outside looking in, but that is a huge factor. The games within the games change completely, and your play calls change a lot when you go from 3rd and short to 3rd and long. So I love that. I'm glad you brought that up. Great effort by both running backs throughout the night. But yeah, for me, how to get that fixed, you just got to stick with it. Repetition, right? You can't abandon it. It's tough, though, when we say that for Lincoln Riley to sit there and watch a run go for -1, go for 1 yard, go for no gain, to say, I'm going to stick to this no matter what. I'm going to ride this run game until it starts hitting, until it pops. When you have Miller back there who's dicing up a defense and looking comfortable and picking this defense apart and making all the right reads and the right throws. So, yeah, we've got to stick with it. We've got to continue to trust it and get better, but you can't abandon it, and it's tough when it doesn't look great at times. But Lincoln Riley knows how to get that done, and I think we'll have a balanced attack going forward.
This is a question, I think it's 2-part, but how much of that, the success or lack thereof of the run game, was also due to the fact that now you have a quarterback who is not a Caleb Williams, not a Houdini, and who is, but that RPO game, you're kind of banking on him to hand it off to Woody Marks or Quentin Joyner. Like, as a run threat, does that kind of limit some of the guessing that the defense had to do with Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I think, and the biggest example of that is what I just talked about. And I will say this, in my notes, Miller did a good job of throwing on the run, of evading the rush, of making some plays with his feet. Now, did he take off and run? There was one third down when it was after that screen to Zachariah Branch, to where we had the penalty by Jacoby Lane, and then we had the screen to Zachariah Branch to get back into the red zone or within the 5-yard line. And I think it was that play or right around that. And then the very next play, Miller takes a sack when you saw the middle of the field open up where he could take off and run, right? And I kind of thought to myself, go, go, go. But and he'll learn that. But, yeah, I think there's a different factor, and defenses are going to be able to play us differently because of that. But the best example is that first third down, right, where Harold Perkins Jr. is coming off the edge, and you see Miller pull it, which was a great read. But instead of having that quickness to get outside, and Perkins made a phenomenal play. He's a very good player, by the way. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, in my opinion, at linebacker. But Miller, where maybe we would have seen Caleb pull that and get outside the edge and have a big pickup on the outside, Miller just didn't have that quick first step to get around Perkins. So I think that's going to play a factor, and that's going to, it takes that advantage that you have in the run game to have a quarterback that can take off and hurt you with his feet. But I think opposite of that, we saw LSU struggle. There were times when Nussmeier could have taken off and ran that we would have seen Jaden Daniels do, who ran for over 1,000 yards last year. Didn't do that. That's why I think we looked a lot better in the run as well. So, and beauty of it for us, outside of maybe Michigan with Alex Orji, I don't think we're going to see a lot of running quarterbacks this year. I mean, Dylan Raiola, Drew Allar, you got Will Rogers at Washington. I'm just trying to go down. We don't play Oregon, and then Riley Leonard run a little bit. So just thinking of some of the guys we're playing in the future, we're not going to have that true dual threat that I can think of off the top of my head. So that's a good thing to have. But at the same time, it kind of hurts us a little bit in the run game. But Miller, when he's so efficient with the ball in his hands in the pass game, it absolutely gives you an advantage at quarterback.
With that being said, how did you see Lincoln Riley adjust to Miller rather than what we've seen with the last 2 years with Caleb Williams?
I don't know if he necessarily adjusted. I just think the game plan, it's Lincoln Riley is a guru. Like there's no other way to say it. I am just like a kid with googly eyes, or just like, like I'm serious. Like when I watch Lincoln Riley call offensive plays or game plan, or watch some, like the one I just talked about, the Lake McCree, the fake slide where he sold the block and then ran the seam. Like people don't think of that. Like it's so rare to have a coach that's always one step ahead, and Lincoln Riley's so good at sure, making adjustments, right? When you feel like, okay, we've got Lincoln, and then boom, he hits you with a fake screen that you've seen 3 times, and now I'm going to fake it and go to the right. And, he does such a great job of setting you up to, even if you think, hey, and sometimes it feels like he does it on purpose. Where a defense, you're like, hey, we got that one, we shut that down. And he's like, yeah, I know, but just wait for a couple series. I'm going to go back and do the same thing again, but this time I'm going to fake it, So yeah, he's just a magician when it comes to that. But, it's so much fun to watch, and it's so difficult as a defense to defend, but it's really just, and it's no knock on Miller. This is nothing against Miller, because it's no knock on Baker Mayfield. It's no knock on Kyler Murray. It's no knock on Caleb Williams. But Lincoln Riley is so dang good at plugging and placing whoever's in there at quarterback, and then making a game plan fit to them, and then going out there and putting up 350 yards passing, going up there and putting up 500, 600 all-purpose yards and scoring points, right? To score 27 points and say, man, that was a low-scoring game for Lincoln Riley, that's a compliment, right? So it doesn't matter who's back there at court. It does matter decision-making wise, and you've got to be able to fit in the system and get the job done and be good. And Miller did just that, so I'm not taking away from that. But when you have, as a quarterback, a play caller like Lincoln Riley, it makes your life 10 times better.
Yeah, you mentioned Lake McCree. I felt like it was so fun to see him heavily involved in the passing game. He had 5 catches, which what's funny is I shout out to the Twitter account USC Analytics. They just dropped some great stats, and on the bus ride to the plane, I was like, Jordan Moore and I were talking about, the performance that Lake McCree had. We were trying to think, like, when's the last time that a USC tight end had that type of performance? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to DM USC Analytics. And so they gave me the stat. The last time that a USC tight end had 5 catches in a game was in 2019. Eric Cromanhook had 5 catches against Notre Dame. So that was yeah.
It's been that long. 5, and it's just 5. It's not 10. Wow.
No. Yeah. So that's
Look
what
at
I'm
you
saying.
Going above and beyond, getting those analytics and getting the stats.
We were curious, and when I'm curious, I'm very persistent. So
no, that's good.
But it was really fun to see it, just because you can see how much that opens up the offense when you get a guy like Lake involved. And we also saw that for Cade Eldridge as well. He had his first career catches as well, so congrats to him. But I thought that was just really cool. In clutch moments, Lake really both blocking and receiving, he really stepped up.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we've also got to be efficient with going forward. Just important as the run game is, it's important to get the ball to the tight ends, right? And especially when you get down there in the red zone, you get in those short situations, use those big body players. And I know we have Deuce Robinson and Jacoby Lane on the outside, and we can take advantage of that. But when you really want to attack the middle of the field vertically or over the middle with a crossing route, use some of those bigger body tight ends. Force a linebacker, a Mike linebacker to have to drop in coverage and play Lake McCree, who's a great athletic pass-catching tight end, and then have Kate Eldridge go sit in a spot route over the ball and dump him the football, let him turn around and pick up 10. So, yeah, it was awesome to see Lincoln Riley make that a point of emphasis to get the tight ends the football, and you know how I am. I love seeing the tight ends, love seeing the big guys get the football down there in the red zone.
For sure. Now we talk about receiving. We got to talk about Kyron Hudson.
Oh,
just incredible.
Which one?
Okay, first of all, Sports Center number 1 and number 3 in the top 10. Congrats to him. I said it in my interview with him, post-game interview. He's a redshirt junior. He's been here for a while, waiting in the wings, working hard, and it's so cool to see guys who work that hard get their moment on basically what is the biggest stage that you can get in college football. So congrats to him. Career night for him. Just your thoughts, Cody, on I feel like he was enjoying the more difficult catches than the easier ones on Sunday.
That's 100% true. I mean, he had 5 catches for 83 yards, and it could have been a lot more, right? And we saw that back shoulder. He let it get away from him, and then that, like I said, that touchdown catch he had could have made it. And in my opinion, we should have been up 14-0 at that point when Keely Eure, the play before, could have, was in a great spot, just didn't make a play on the football for LSU's first touchdown. But then we went down, and Miller threw a beautiful back shoulder to Kyron, and he caught it. And it almost like, and I even asked him, I said, hey, did you think you had it? Or he said, I caught it, and I was looking to make sure my foot was in when I turned my head. And instead of tucking it, like I looked away, and he said, that's on me. But I'm like, hey, it's all right, man. You more than enough made up for it on those catches. But yeah, I've got to give credit to him. And let's go through both those catches, right? And he talked about them. The first one we'll start with. Yeah, on Trojans Live. The first one we'll start with is the one to set up that game-winning touchdown, because that was an unbelievable play, right? That was a beautiful whole shot throw by Miller Moss. And for those of you who don't know, having the guts to make that throw and then also being able to pull it off is unbelievable. We saw Caleb Williams do it to win the football game against Oregon State in 2022. Both guys being able to make that throw in those moments is just shows that Riley teaches his quarterbacks to play with no fear. And when you do that, you can, the sky's the limit. You can be so efficient and so effective. But that was an unbelievable, and it wasn't just a cover 2 hole shot. What I mean by hole shot is you have a corner playing underneath, and then you have a safety over the top, and there's a little hole on the sideline that you can fit behind the corner and before the safety. Well, it wasn't just a cover 2 hole shot. It was a sinking corner cover 2 hole shot. When you have a corner that's falling off, that means they has no flat threat right away. If someone broke to the flat, then he'd have to come up. He can sink a little bit with Kyron. Oh, hey, there's a thumbs up. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. For those of you who don't know, I had something on my computer that when I do a thumbs up, it does that. So we didn't know if it'd come up, but it just did. But back to my point.
Yes.
They did a great job because the corner sunk into coverage and Miller still made that throw. And Kyron said the fact that Miller fit that in there and the fact that I held onto it, not to toot his own horn, but that was unbelievable. So that's high level. Now,
that targeting shot as well.
Yeah, and then and I asked him, I said, did you feel that? And he was like, no. It was one of those to where like it looked bad on TV, but I hopped up and was so excited and had so much adrenaline, I didn't even feel it. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm glad you're feeling good. Now to the catch. We've got to name it something. It's going to go down in USC history. That's
Seriously.
Just one of the better catches.
You got to frame that.
I hope he gets one in they put it up in McKay Center for sure. But he's got to get one for his own house or for his apartment. But to make that catch, and I'm going to take you kind of the quarterback side of that as well. So I asked him on the show and just watching film. So it was an over route over the middle of the football. Miller did a great job dropping back, got a little pressure on the right side. Mason Murphy had to wash his defensive end outside. Miller Moss did a great job of stepping up to the left, keeping his eyes downfield. But that's, Keely just mentioned, 2 guys that have been here for a long time together and have had plenty of reps together, knowing that I'm running the over route. But as Miller steps up, I can peek that there's no one behind and I can press a little bit more vertical, right? That's not the drawing when you look at the play call and over and pushing up. That's 2 football players who know each other very well, making a play happen in a big-time moment. And that's exactly what they did. And it was just unbelievable. I mean, he's full extended. He caught it twice. He's full extended, grabs it with one hand, starts losing it, spinning, still somehow controls his body and makes the catch. So it was unbelievable. I mean, it just huge shout out to him. It was so cool to see a guy like that get, and it's kind of the same as Miller, right? Two guys that have waited in line. It's cool when you have guys that are Trojans through and through and that have been here that entire time and have seen some tough times and stayed through it and didn't transfer and didn't run away to make big time plays on that type of stage. It makes you happy as a proud, former Trojan.
For sure. And I mentioned I was talking to Miller after the game. He mentioned that part of what they did over the summer to work on their chemistry, he was like, I had guys drive down to Orange County. Like, guys were willing to drive down to Orange County so we could throw together. And he basically alluded to, we don't have that chemistry unless we're putting in those extra hours and making those drives and those time sacrifices. So it really is a credit to how hard they worked over the offseason that game one, they can have that trust. I mean, there were so many times when I watched on the broadcast, I say so many, but I can remember two off the top of my head, where Miller, when he let go of the ball, the wide receiver is not where they are. The trust.
The seam throw to Mekhi Lemon on that 2-minute drive before the half was unbelievable. And the second one, who was that? I know what you're talking about. It was throw to the left side. I'm blanking right now as he was breaking in and Miller threw it before.
Maybe Jacoby?
It might have been Jacoby, but he's not even looking yet. But that's a great point. And you know what that is? Again, it goes back to the 2-minute drill I talked about. That is repetition. That is trust.
Mm-hmm.
That is I'll put a blindfold on, but I know these guys so well that I can take my fifth step, hitch up, and know where to throw it off of muscle memory because I know my guys are going to be where they're supposed to be. And I'm glad you said that because, not just talking about Kyron, Jacoby Lane played very well. Mekhi Lemon had that big time catch on the seam route, who I'd like to see a little bit more involved. And then Zachariah Branch is Zachariah Branch, right? He's phenomenal with the ball in his hands. Lincoln does a great job of finding ways to get him the football. Played him inside, played him outside. I'd love to see him continue to get some plays. And then Kyle Ford, someone that we've forgiven and we forgot where he was before. but you saw a couple plays there that makes you so happy that he's back over here on the good side with the Trojans. So, it was fun to watch. And Miller, there was – how do you replace Jordan Addison from a couple years ago? How do you replace Taj Washington from last year? How do you replace Brendan Rice? But USC just keeps finding these guys to keep stepping up. And I think – and then Deuce Robinson, another guy. Yeah. Great play. I think it was after their first touchdown. He hit Deuce Robinson down the left sideline using his big body. A beautiful throw by Miller. And then another one, the guy couldn't cover him, so he had to have PI. And that throws a little inside. But when you have so many different threats on offense on the perimeter – as a quarterback, you're just constantly just licking your chops like, all right, who wants it next? Who's up next? So it's so much fun to watch. And obviously Kyron's the leader in that room and got a lot of talent around him. And guys, there's some guys to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, it's such an advantage to have someone like Deuce, who's kind of like a PI machine a little bit. You can kind of, when in doubt, lob it up there for him. Yeah, exactly. But on the whole, this whole offseason, we were talking about how, will we see what we saw in the Holiday Bowl? Like, it was a glimmer of, this next generation of USC receiver talent. Was that, are we going to see that again? And I feel like this just confirmed it, that like this is a talented group that is just starting to come into their own. So I'm excited to see how it evolves over the course of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I'll say this, it's only going to get better. That's kind of the last thing I'll say about that is get your popcorn ready. And that was my biggest question mark. Like you said, was it a one-off from the Holiday Bowl? Or is Miller Moss that guy that can lead this football team and be that gunslinger back there in a Lincoln Riley offense and distribute the football? Look, 10 different Trojans caught a pass on Saturday, including backs out of the backfield and tight ends. He knows how to find the open guy. He's going to keep everybody involved. And like I said, buckle up. This is going to be an exciting year for USC's offense. And when you have Lincoln Riley calling the plays, it's always fun to watch.
For sure. Already, I know we probably could talk about this offense more and more, but I don't even know where we are as far as recording time for this episode. No, any more thoughts on the offense before we go to questions? And we have still a bit to go, even though I brought a lot of questions up into this discussion portion.
No, but I'm going to be quick. Listen, there's people that complain sometimes about the long episodes. We're passionate, dang it. If you don't want to listen to us, there's a power button or there's an exit button that you can cut off and you can get rid of. I promise all of them won't be this long, but we just beat the top 15 ranked. We just beat LSU on a national stage at Allegiant Stadium. We're fresh off. Well, I'm not. I stayed home. Keely's fresh off the plane from Vegas. Yeah. It's USC Trojan football's back, dang it. So fight on. And oh, look at this. What's the one more thing? The balloons. Boom. I can't figure out how to turn it off, but every time, look, you want fireworks?
Hold on.
No, confetti.
Confetti.
confetti. Boom. So we got 5. Even my computer's excited.
I think I need to release the clip, Cody. We did we were doing a test recording when Cody figured out that his camera does these reactions. Hilarious. So
wait,
I might
hold
have
on.
to.
You got the thumbs up bubble. We saw that.
Yes.
But then if you do 2, boom. You want some fireworks? There you go. please leave this in.
I totally will.
The funny joke about this is about a couple hours ago before we started recording, we had no idea that my computer did this. So
no.
Now I'm
did
using
something,
it to my
and we were like, yeah. And I
no,
love
you said,
how this...
you asked if I could hear you, and I was like, yeah. And then the bubble popped up, and we were like, wait, what'd I do? Okay.
Yeah, it looked like magic. Also, I love how this tangent was going off of people complaining that we run long. So just really sealing the
And now
deal.
you're getting fireworks and confetti and balloons, and USC's 1-0, and I'm pumped up, and it's 11:15 now, and I'm about to get a coffee and go for another couple hours. So here we go. Hit me with the questions.
Alrighty, before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Focus matters. Listen closely. The Audi Q8 e-tron's cabin is serenely quiet, so you can focus on other things like having tomorrow's technology today. The fully electric Audi Q8 e-tron, how we get there matters. And also, if you didn't know, the LSU USC game was presented by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF partner of the USC Trojans. Alrighty, as promised, let's get into some other questions, I should say. First off, Ron, and I'm going to mix together 2 questions, Ron and Abel. Ron said, does this show that this team can play all 4 quarters on both sides of the ball? And Abel said, how do you build on this for Big Ten battles?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot about this football team. I think that they, and I asked Lincoln this on Trojans Live. I said, how much more valuable is it to go against a top 15 opponent like LSU in the first game of the year as opposed to playing those quote unquote tune-up games or, those lesser opponent games to where you don't learn a whole lot about your football team and it's just kind of that feel-good game where you win 70-21 or whatever it may be. And he just said it's so important because some things you may learn or have to wait to learn till week 4 or 5 and then build off of it from there or really get tested. You learn right off the bat, right? And you get battle tested right away. You go play in an environment where you have to play all 4 quarters and play your best football against a tough SEC opponent. So it is just so important that we learn that early on. And I think it's just such a great starting point for us to go off of. And look, are there going to be other tough opponents? Is it? And I'm, again, going back to Miller's quote, did we win the Super Bowl? No. Did we do everything we want to do this year? No. Is it a big win? Absolutely. But it's not. The season's made now, right? Because we beat LSU at Allegiant Stadium on the first game of the year. So there's a lot of things that can still happen. But back to the question, it just gives you a ton of confidence knowing what you have or what your team's capable of and how fast you learned about them in week 1.
In a similar vein, Steven wanted to know, after a huge win, what is Lincoln telling his guys to get them calm and ready for Utah State, who's going to throw everything at us as well?
I think you just stay the course, right? There's no crazy speech. Now the tough part about that question is that you're on a shortened week, right? And
yeah, again,
I keep referencing Trojans Live. Please go watch it if you have the opportunity because you get to hear from the head ball coach himself talk about these things. But I asked him the same thing, right? And it's funny. That's how I know our listeners have the same football mind as me, asking these same questions that I asked Lincoln. But I asked him. I said, hey, it's like when you're playing the NFL, when you play a Monday night game and then you play that following Sunday, or even after a Sunday game playing on a Thursday, like those shortened weeks are so difficult, especially after a win like this. It's so draining physically and mentally to get everybody back up and ready to go. And again, not a trap game. I hate using those terms, but you're playing an opponent that you should win. And then you have a bye week, and then you start your first ever conference game in the Big Ten against Michigan in a couple weeks. It's hard not to look ahead, right? You've got to stay focused on the task at hand. You can't look past this game. You've got a quick turnaround, right? Today is Monday. Normally it'd be Sunday or a rehab day, a day to watch some film. But now, no, we're prepping for Monday. We're already a day behind Utah State, who's a day ahead of us in preparation. So we've got to catch back up. And but Lincoln Riley's the guy to do it. That's why you go get a guy like Lincoln Riley and D'Anton Lynn who know how to build the right culture and have his team ready to go in any circumstance.
Yeah, the stark reminder that today is Monday versus, the extra day. When we got on the plane, they make announcements and stuff like that. But it's the ops director of operations, Clark Stroud, who's making the announcements. And he goes, weight room opens at this time, workouts at this time. And you're just sitting there on the plane. And I'm exhausted. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even think about, doing a workout in several hours from now. You know what I mean? It's just crazy turnaround. I will say, though, I thought it was really encouraging, and I mentioned this at the top, the poise that this team had and kind of the team chemistry that they had. It made me feel like, to Steven's question, it wasn't like this emotional victory in the sense that like I felt like there was substance behind this win. Does that make sense? Like I felt like the way that they won it shows some resolve in this team that I don't worry as much about a Utah State letdown, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why you want to see. Would it have been awesome to go out there and drop 50 and blow LSU out of the water and have it be a cakewalk and we're up 50-20 and we walk out of there? Yeah, sure, and I'll take that any day of the week, and that's great for my stress levels too from last night and watching USC football, and I'm sure a lot of fans agree, but I love having that type of game early on because, like we said, it shows you the type of team we have, and that's a great point, Keely, that this isn't the type of team that's just going to look past this next opponent and go ahead and get ready for the bye week and enjoy an off week. They're going to go out there, perform, be ready to go, and learn from this tape and go prove it on Saturday.
Jason wanted to know what you thought of Lincoln Riley's clock management on Sunday.
Okay, I mean, yeah, this was inevitable. I knew this was coming up. So we're talking about, we already talked about the 2 timeouts in the second half, so I'm not going to go back to that. That was, again, I think an in-helmet communication issue. But let's talk about the ones at the end of the first half, right? Or that those couple run plays where he had some timeout or a timeout to sit on. I loved the play call to run the football with Woody Marks on the first one, right? Even myself, no one in that stadium or on that defense or on probably outside of who's on the headset with Lincoln was ready for a run play from Woody Marks in that situation on a 2-minute drill before the half. Loved it, right? Got a huge explosive play, called a timeout. We're sitting on one left. We still have a timeout. We ran it again to just take the field goal, right? I think we were on like the 15, right? We were within shot range to where we could take a play for the end zone. But the beauty of it is we still had a timeout. So we could have worked the middle of the field still, right? We could have, when you have a timeout, that means that the entire field of play is open, and that's tough on a defense in a 2-minute drill because you're not just playing the sidelines, right? When a team doesn't have a timeout and there's less than 15 seconds, they have to work the boundary, right? In college football, you do stop the clock after a first down, so that counts a little bit. But mostly you're going to expect them to work flat, second level, third level towards the sideline so you can leave the middle open and cover the outside. When you have a timeout, you can still work the entire field. So I would have loved to see allowing Miller Moss to take a shot there in the end zone. And then if we don't get it, or if we catch it and we go down to the 4, we still have a timeout to call timeout with a couple seconds left and then make that decision. Do we kick a short field goal or do we try to score here before half? But he ran it again with Woody there. Again, I'm never going to question Lincoln Riley and his play calling, and he's one of, if not the best in the country. But for me, I understand the question, right? You would have maybe loved to see a shot at the end zone there. It's easy to say that too when they miss the field goal, right? If we make that field goal and we're up 3 and we don't have to worry about it, then it's, kind of a moot point. But
hindsight.
When they miss the kick and, you go into the halftime losing momentum, it's a little frustrating when you were sitting on a timeout and you could have maybe took a shot at the end zone.
G wanted to know wanted us to list top 3 positive takeaways and 3 things both sides of the ball can improve on.
All right, I'm going to be quick. Let's rattle these off. Top 3, let's go Miller Moss. I'm going to go defense as a whole. New look defense. And then I'm going to go with Jonah Monheim is another guy. I mean, Jonah Monheim, 3A, Woody Marks, 3B. Woody Marks, I think, was so valuable to have on this team.
I'm glad you said 3. Woody. Sorry, I just want to give a shout out to Woody. I just want to give a shout out to Woody because from my level, he was just
his
getting battered and bruised.
Oh, was he?
Say?
I said his attitude too, like his post-game press conference, running up and putting his arm, and we got to hear him in the interviews pre-game. Like I've never heard him talk or really, the type of player he is yet or person he is. I was ready. Very kind of soft-spoken a little bit, but I was ready to run through a brick wall for that guy. I'm like, dude, I want this guy next to me in the backfield.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like the shots he was taking, like those were some intense LSU defenders, and I was just like, it was a second hand, like ooh. And I know that's what you sign up for as a running back, but I just had to give props. Sorry, Cody. Continue with your
you're good.
Improvements.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page with giving him credit. So those are my 3A, B, I guess, and then 3 not negatives, but things to improve on. Run game, being able to be better on offense in the run game. Big point for me, exclamation point. Got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. And then the final one for me, overall, last thing to work on, I'm going to go with, I don't know. You got one for me? I'm trying to think. My biggest points of the night were being able to run the football on offense and being able to get pressure on the quarterback. My last one is on the third and short situations, third and medium to short. I'd like to see us be a little bit tighter in coverage, even when we play man-to-man or go cover zero. Just don't give up some of those easy, uncontested catches.
Yeah, if you didn't say that one, I'd say maybe like just nailing down the helmet comms a little bit more.
Okay,
I don't know.
good one. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know. Like and
better
Lincoln said as much
because of the timeouts too. Just better, I guess, not communication, but better operation of it is kind of the best way to say it.
Is to be expected game one. You know what I mean? With new technology. Like Riley said it as much in Trojans Live. He was like, it worked, but we also learned so much about how we can use it. So like I feel like time. Yeah. 1,000%. We got a question from Gustavo who said, with Hudson showing out, Cody, who were some of the down the depth chart wide receivers you played with that just had that dog in them?
Oh, the first guy that comes to mind is Darius Rogers. I don't even know why his name. I mean, I know why, but just right when you said that, the first name that popped up is Darius Rogers. He was an unsung hero, I guess, for a lot of those seasons because he was behind guys like Juju Smith-Schuster. He played alongside guys like Nelson Aguilar, and guys that were maybe a little bit ahead of them on the depth chart. But Darius Rogers was an absolute dog when it came to best ball skills I've ever seen in my entire life. Best tracking the football, best hands when it came to like a surefire, he's going to catch it every time that I've ever been around. And I don't say that lightly. He was phenomenal. So yeah, D-Raj comes to mind. So shout out, if you ever listen to this, I just talked to him the other day on Instagram. So shout out D-Raj.
No, yeah, that's a great pull. He's someone who I remember was just super reliable. And when you needed him, he was someone you could count on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, we had a question from Gustavo again, but it was for me this time. He said, Keely, how did it feel decompressing from the game after you finished your assignments and were able to stop moving for a second? So
have you been able to do that yet?
First of all, not really, no.
Yeah.
But if you really want to like literally say stop moving, it was when I got into, I just did like a Italian hand. Yeah. Stop moving, it was on the plane. Like we finally, because like what happens post game is like I'm literally on the bus trying to get the post game presser up, trying to like get interviews out. Like there's a lot of work to be done and I'm trying not to be left by the bus and or plane. So the first real moment I had to like kind of take stock of everything was on the plane. And the only other time I can really compare this to was for some reason, and I think it was the heat and the altitude too, was Colorado last year. When you are that hyped up for that long on no food, the crash of adrenaline is terrible. It was so bad. I was like nauseous.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I talked to Miller about it too, and he was like, I'm so tired. And I was like, I feel you, even though I didn't do anything.
Like the highest of highs to the absolute depths. Yeah, I get
for sure. And like I'm the type of person who, when it's an intense game, when it's that environment, I am living and dying by it. You know what I mean?
Your whole muscles, everything's tight.
Well, I had my notebook too, and there was points where I was like kind of crouching because I was just like, you know. So
I was watching from home.
There was just so much adrenaline, and when you actually stopped for a second, it felt horrible. So, yes, it was like nice to be like, wow, winning is nice, and it's nice to cover a winning team, but it was definitely a crash of adrenaline for sure. I'm gonna end our show, Cody, if you will, on 3 questions that are actually comments. First one is from Jason, who said, "How sweet was that?" Eddie said, "No question. Just want to say that we're freaking back. Fight on."
Let's go. Fight
and
on.
Trojan Mom, who said, "Do you love our new D and Miller time as much as I do? Such a great win, and the tears in his eyes, priceless, right?" So I just figured we'd end on that note, Cody, given the game that it was. Yeah,
that's fight on to everybody. I mean, it's fireworks, fight on. We got even the confetti. I keep thinking the double fight ons. Hey, just like Vegas, we're working just like they had after the end of the game. But yeah, I'll end with that point. And just being a quarterback myself, you could feel the emotion. I'm talking to those of us that watched from home, and you might have rewatched the TV copy, but you could feel that emotion. And Holly Rowe does such an amazing job of capturing those moments with players. Holly's covered me when I was here at USC, but you could feel Miller holding it together. I'm tough. I'm that. I'm the USC quarterback. I'm tough. I'm tough. I'm tough. I'm tough. And then he spoke about his teammates and said, I love it so much for the guys around me. And then you hear that voice crack, right? And then you see the tears fill up.
Which is so telling.
It is. It's just, it's so, when you put your entire life into something, right? And it's not just football, it's anything outside of that. When you dedicate your craft to being a perfectionist, to being someone who especially has gone through adversity and then having that breakthrough, it's a rush of emotion. It's a feeling to where it's hard to replicate, right? And I've been there, and I sat and had to wait and was third string and wanted to transfer, but I didn't, and I stayed, and just all these question marks. And then had that, I think back to the big win against Stanford in 2013, right? And just when you have those moments to where all that hard work pays off, it's so fulfilling. And I'm a Miller fan. I'm any quarterback that plays here at SC, I'm going to root for him. But, I just feel a little bit more for Miller after that, hearing that interview and just what he's been through. So that's a great spot to end. I'm so excited for Miller Moss. I'm so excited for the rest of this team. And this defense, D'Anton Lynn, Lincoln Riley did a phenomenal job of going out and finding a staff that can get the job done in those tough moments. But again, and Miller said it best, I'm going to quote our quarterback one more time, our season goal was not to just beat LSU, right? Yes, it's exciting. We can celebrate that, but we've got a long road ahead, and we've got to continue to keep our foot down and get ready to go for Utah State this week.
Awesome. What a great way to wrap it up, Cody. I don't
Am
even
I doing
have to
my
toss it back to you.
I got one more. Hey, come here. We got one more to say bye.
The best wrap up there is.
We got one more to say. Hey, get up. Come here. This is Coda saying bye. How do you feel about that last podcast? Okay, you're out of here. All right, for Coda, I'm Cody. We're wrapping it up. It's been a long episode. We apologize. But again, USC football, I know. I really, I feel bad because there's like one or two comments that complain, and there's a couple other comments that are like, I run to this, or I love this, or this is awesome, keep going. So either way, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. It is 11:34 p.m. I just got food delivered. It is here. My dog's excited. What a great way to outro.
Amazing.
Love you guys. Fight on. We're excited for next week, and let's keep this thing rolling. And we got a preview episode in a couple days.
Yep, we're going to be back with a new episode quick. So what better time to wrap it up? Food, Coda, all the rest. That's going to wrap it up for today's recap episode. Thank you so much for your patience on this one. The short week is just super hard with Trojans Live, which we mentioned 90 million times, but we had a lot to do today. So thank you for your patience. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see you in a couple days.